What if the greatest rational mind in European history secretly believed that reality was not what we think it is? What if the man who taught the world to trust reason eventually discovered that reason itself has a limit? And what if that discovery was so dangerous that parts of his final thoughts were quietly erased, hidden, or never published at all? This is not fiction. This is the forgotten inner journey of Immanuel Kant, a philosopher remembered for logic, but haunted by something far deeper. History presents Kant as the cold architect of reason, a disciplined mind, a man of routines so precise that neighbors set their clocks by his evening walks. He is the icon of the Enlightenment, the champion of logic and empirical thought. But behind the academic mask, another Kant existed, a man who did not trust religious institutions, who rejected dogma, and yet he believed that the human being was more than just a rational machine. Kant did not deny the soul. He denied the Church's ownership of it. He challenged the idea that morality and the afterlife were the exclusive property of organized religion. Instead, he spoke of something radical for his time, the noumenal realm. This wasn't heaven or hell. It was a reality beyond our sensory experience, something parallel, intelligent, and real. Think of it not as a God who judges, but as a presence that observes. That distinction, the idea of a spiritual reality free from religious control, terrified institutions built on fear and obedience. There's a story rarely mentioned in philosophy textbooks. As a young student, Kant reportedly witnessed something impossible. A professor, recently deceased, was seen days later standing, silent, staring through people as if looking through time itself. Now, Kant never publicly endorsed this ghost story. He was a rationalist, after all. But decades later, in private letters, he described images that do not come from memory, but from something we almost understood and were afraid to understand fully. A rationalist using mystical language. That moment didn't turn Kant into a believer in the supernatural. It turned him into a listener. It planted a seed of doubt about the limits of what we can know. Kant's entire philosophy is built on one shocking admission. Reason is powerful, but it is not infinite. Human understanding, he argued, is like a window. It lets light in, but it doesn't let all of it in. And this isn't because we're ignorant or close-minded. It's because the structure of our minds can only process reality in a certain way. He proposed that there's a fundamental border to what our intellect can grasp. This wasn't theology. It was an existential observation. And once Kant crossed that border internally, he could never return to pure, simple rationalism again. He understood that the map of reason did not cover the entire territory of existence. Late in life, something happened. Kant disappeared from public life for a full week. He cancelled his lectures. He ignored letters from friends and colleagues. His servant later reported hearing whispers at night, as if someone was trying to speak through the very walls of reality. When Kant returned, he was different. People who knew him said he was changed. He began avoiding mirrors. He spoke less, and he started writing a final, cryptic work he would never complete, with a title that translates to something like On the Limits of Reason and the Mystery of Being. Most of this final work vanished. What little survived was disturbing. Fragments of this dangerous manuscript, discovered decades later, contained sentences that shattered his public image. One line read, "The soul does not arise with the body. It enters it like a traveler enters a house, and leaves when it remembers the way home." This was not philosophy as Europe knew it. This was the language of mystics, of initiation schools. Naturally, the Church, a powerful force at the time, demanded the manuscript never be published. Even more strangely, the margins of these fragments contained notes written in another hand, in Latin. But it wasn't Kant's handwriting. Who wrote them or what wrote them remains completely unknown. So why did this terrify the Church and the establishment? Kant's hidden ideas didn't deny God. They denied control. If morality doesn't come from fear of punishment in the afterlife, but from an inner respect for oneself and others, what Kant called the moral law within, then the authority of institutions that promise salvation or threaten damnation begins to collapse. If truth is found in silent contemplation, not just in sermons, then priests and preachers become less necessary. If the soul is already whole, not fundamentally broken or sinful, then the entire concept of salvation becomes obsolete. Kant didn't start a rebellion with swords and flags. He planted a seed of intellectual and spiritual independence. In his final years, Kant stopped arguing. He stopped trying to prove his points. He stopped defending his reputation. He began to listen. He spent more time in silence. And that, in a world of loud opinions and rigid doctrines, was the most radical act of all. Truth does not need proof. He once said quietly to a friend, "It needs silence." This wasn't the end of reason. This was reason standing at the edge of something vast, something mysterious and profound, and choosing not to turn away. It was the ultimate expression of intellectual humility from one of history's greatest minds. Thank you for watching. If this story made you think, consider subscribing for more journeys into the hidden corners of history and thought. What happens when a man who spent his life thinking realizes that thinking is no longer enough? What happens when logic hits its own ceiling and something else begins to speak? This isn't just a hypothetical question. It's the story of one of history's greatest minds, Immanuel Kant. And his later years were not just philosophical, they were transformational. For most of his life, Kant was the titan of reason, a man who built intricate systems of logic. But in his final years, something shifted. His students were the first to notice. When Kant lectured on ethics or logic, he was the same sharp, precise thinker they all knew. His voice would soften. He wasn't just speaking to the room anymore. It felt like he was speaking through it. One student later wrote in his journal, "It felt as if someone was standing behind us, listening." Kant was no longer constructing systems. He was bearing witness. He was moving from thinking to witnessing. This profound shift was most clear in how he started describing the higher reality, what some might call God. He stopped using the traditional terms of a judge, a king, or a ruler. Instead, he started calling it an observer. This one change, from judge to observer, changes everything. Think about it. If the universe isn't a judge waiting to punish you, then fear loses its power. If morality isn't about following external rules to avoid punishment, but about aligning with an inner law, then external control becomes meaningless. Kant understood the revolutionary implications of this immediately, and so did the powerful institutions of his day, like the church. In his final private notes, scraps of paper not meant for publication, Kant wrote sentences that sound less like a German philosopher and more like an ancient mystic from the East. One of the most startling lines reads, "We die in order to remember that we were never born." This idea doesn't come from the Christian tradition he was raised in. It echoes Eastern mysticism, Gnosticism, and Neoplatonism, and we now know Kant secretly read all of them. He wasn't trying to adopt their beliefs. He was a pattern recognizer. He saw the same fundamental truth bubbling up in different cultures, in different times, all pointing to the same non-dual reality. He was connecting the dots across centuries of human wisdom. Through this journey, Kant arrived at a conclusion that very few Western rationalists ever reach, a place that seems to defy logic itself. He realized that consciousness is not inside the body is inside consciousness. Let that sink in. You are not a body that has a consciousness. You are consciousness, and for a short time, you are experiencing that consciousness through a body. For Kant, this wasn't a descent into madness. It was the ultimate arrival at clarity, and with that clarity, the fear of death simply disappeared. The fear of loss dissolved. Life stopped being a struggle against the world and became a homecoming, a return to the source. As he got older, Kant famously stopped engaging in public debates, especially with theologians. People were confused. This was the man who loved a good argument. When someone asked him why he'd gone silent, he gave a simple, profound answer. Victory in logic is meaningless when truth arrives without words. He had come to understand that the deepest truths can't be taught or argued into existence. They can only be remembered, and that deep inner memory doesn't respond to the noise of debate and argument. It responds to silence. It responds to stillness. This is why silence became so essential for him in his final chapter. To explain this glimpse of a deeper reality, Kant used one final metaphor over and over again. He said, "We live on one side of a mirror. Sometimes the glass cracks, and we glimpse the source of the reflection. These cracks," he believed, aren't created by intense thinking or logical proofs. They appear in moments of deep stillness. They happen when we're in awe of a sunset, or in the quiet depths of grief, or when we're moved by a piece of music or a beautiful work of art. These moments can't be forced. They can't be engineered. They can only be allowed. You have to create the space for the cracks to appear, for the light to shine through. And this leads us to the most dangerous idea of all. The reason Kant's later thoughts were so feared by the authorities of his time. A human being who remembers who they really are. This boundless consciousness cannot be ruled in the traditional sense. They don't need threats of hell to be good. They don't need promises of heaven to be kind. They act from a place of deep inner alignment with the universe itself. This is a dangerous kind of freedom. It's why Kant's later thoughts weren't seen as just an attack on religion. They were seen as something far more revolutionary. They didn't destroy religion. They outgrew it, pointing to a direct personal experience of the divine that no institution can control. Kant's final journey wasn't about building a better system of thought. It was about transcending thought altogether and returning home. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more journeys into the heart of philosophy and wisdom. Have you ever felt it? That profound, quiet moment when time itself seems to slow down and the world around you takes on an almost unreal quality. It's a fleeting feeling, a whisper from deep within, a sensation that something inside you recognizes itself. The great philosopher Immanuel Kant believed these moments were not daydreams or hallucinations. He argued there were moments of truth breaking through the noise of our everyday lives. Kant was a titan of reason, a man who built his entire philosophical system on logic and rationality. Yet he insisted that every single human being carries an inner guide. This isn't the voice of fear, nagging you with worst-case scenarios. It's not the voice of guilt, replaying your past mistakes. No, this is a quiet, steady voice that speaks only when we finally stop running. For centuries, powerful institutions, be they religious, political, or social, have tried to drown out this inner voice. They want you to look outside yourself for answers, for validation, for permission. Kant's mission, in a way, was to restore our connection to that inner guide. He wanted to give us back the key to our own internal compass. So, how do we access this truth? How do we awaken? According to Kant's interpretation, it's simpler and more direct than you might think. There are no elaborate ceremonies required, no secret initiations to pass, no need for intermediaries, gurus, or priests to translate the truth for you. All it takes is honesty, silence, and courage. The courage to be still, the courage to listen to what arises in that stillness, the courage to be honest with yourself about what you hear. Kant believed awakening wasn't something you achieve through effort, like climbing a mountain. It's something you allow, like opening a window to let in the fresh air. It's a process of subtraction, not addition. You don't need to learn more. You need to unlearn the noise that's blocking your own innate wisdom. This wasn't just a theory for Kant. It seems to have been the reality he lived, especially in his final days. As he neared the end of his life, he barely spoke. But those who were with him reported feeling something truly unusual in his presence. The atmosphere in the room was described as dense, profoundly still, yet pulsing with life. It was a silence that wasn't empty. It was full. And in the midst of this powerful stillness, Kant would smile a gentle, serene smile. It wasn't the smile of someone facing an ending, but of someone who was returning to a place they had always known. His last recorded words are hauntingly beautiful. I see light. It does not blind. It calls me home. It suggests a final, peaceful merging with the very truth he had spent his life pointing towards. So, what did Kant really leave behind for us? It wasn't a rigid doctrine to be memorized. It wasn't a new religion to follow. It was something far more personal and powerful. An invitation. An invitation to stop being afraid of silence. An invitation to stop outsourcing your truth to others, to books, to leaders, to society. An invitation to stop asking for permission to know yourself on the deepest level. He offered us a path back to our own sovereignty, to the authority of our own inner experience. He wasn't giving us a map. He was reminding us that we are the map. This leads us to a final, crucial question. If Immanuel Kant, ultimate man of reason, the architect of logic, walked all the way to the very edge of what the mind can comprehend and found not a void, but a profound freedom, what might be waiting for you on the other side of your own fear? The fear of being alone with your thoughts, the fear of what you might find in the quiet, the fear of trusting your own inner voice. Because according to this perspective on Kant, truth isn't something external that we discover. It is something internal that we remember. And silence is the doorway. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into the heart of wisdom. If you're still here watching my videos, I want to say something simple. Thank you. In a world of endless noise and distractions, the fact that you choose to spend your time here means more than you can imagine. It means you're one of those rare people who wants to go deeper, question reality, and look inside yourself, not just outside. I'm honestly happy that there are people who share these interests, these questions, this search for meaning. So if you feel this space resonates with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need it. Your support helps this content reach more people who are also quietly searching. Thank you for being here, really.